Hello and welcome to Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Nawreen. In today's bulletin, we will present top and trending news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. US-China pledge healthy economic ties as Yellen visits Beijing. Biden launches a new push to limit healthcare costs. Trump blasts DeSantis in Iowa, says GOP rival despises the state's ethanol. DeSantis campaign brings in $20 million in donations, trailing Trump. Rudy Giuliani should be disbarred for pursuing Trump's false election claims, a review panel says. US man gets 90 life sentences for racist El Paso Walmart attack. US to send cluster bombs to Ukraine despite humanitarian concerns. Video shows Britney Spears inadvertently hit herself in the face in encounter with Victor Wembanyama. Twitter threatens legal action against Meta over its new rival app, Threads. Biden approves disaster declaration for spring storm in Maine. Alzheimer's drug Leqembi has full FDA approval now, and that means Medicare will pay for it. Woman arrested outside Taylor Swift's beachfront Rhode Island home on trespassing charge. Tibet's Dalai Lama marks 88th birthday, prays for world peace. Indian authorities arrest 3 railway officials over the train crash that killed more than 290. Bangladesh Tamim Iqbal reverses shock cricket retirement. And Hawks agree to $120 million 4-year contract extension with Murray. You were listening to headlines, now news in detail. The United States and China are not seeking to weaken their economic ties despite ongoing disputes. US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and her Chinese counterpart have said as Yellen held a series of meetings with leaders in Beijing. Yellen and China's finance minister made the pledges on Friday, the second day of her 4-day visit to the Chinese capital. The trip is aimed at repairing fractious US-Chinese relations, which have soured amid disputes over security, technology, and heightened competition between the world's first and second largest economies. Speaking to China-based US business leaders on Friday, Yellen said she had made it clear that the United States does not seek a wholesale separation of our economies. A decoupling of the world's 2 largest economies would be destabilizing for the global economy, and it would be virtually impossible to undertake, she said. Yellen held talks later in the day with Chinese Premier Li Qiang, and she stressed the need for cooperation. She also raised concerns over Beijing's treatment of US companies operating in China, while defending US policies that seek to curb China's access to critical technologies. President Joe Biden on Friday rolled out a new set of initiatives to reduce healthcare costs, a crackdown on scam insurance plans, new guidance to prevent surprise medical bills, and an effort to reduce medical debt tied to credit cards. Biden's remarks will build on previous initiatives to limit healthcare costs, with the Department of Health and Human Services releasing new estimates showing 18.7 million older adults and other Medicare beneficiaries will save an estimated $400 per year in prescription drug costs in 2025 because of the president placing a cap on out-of-pocket spending as part of last year's Inflation Reduction Act. Gearing up for his 2024 re-election campaign as inflation remains a dominant concern for voters, the Democratic president has emphasized his policies to help families manage their expenses as well as a spate of government incentives to encourage private sector development of electric vehicles, clean energy, and advanced computer chips. Republican lawmakers have criticized Biden's policies by saying they have spurred higher prices that hurt the well-being of families. The Biden administration plans to limit what it calls junk insurance plans, such as short-term policies that can deny basic coverage as people transition between employers and still need temporary health care coverage. Former President Donald Trump on Friday headlined his largest Iowa campaign event in nearly 4 months with a speech to thousands at an arena in the western part of the state. Trump used his appearance in Council Bluffs to attack his top GOP rival, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, for opposing the federal mandate for ethanol, a renewable fuel additive that Iowa leads the nation in producing. "I am proud to be the most pro-farmer president that you have ever had," Trump said at the outset of the event aimed at promoting his administration's agricultural record and touting his oversight of clawbacks of regulations on farmers. "I fought for Iowa ethanol like no precedent in history." He planned to stop by a local Dairy Queen afterward to mingle with workers and customers. The large Republican presidential field has spent a lot of time over the last few months in Iowa, the lead of GOP caucus state. In June, more than a half dozen candidates, including DeSantis, former Vice President Mike Pence, former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley, and U.S. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, attended Senator Johnny Ernst's annual Roast and Ride fundraiser that kicked off a busy summer campaign season. Trump campaigned in the Des Moines area last month, meeting with GOP state lawmakers, influential conservative pastors, campaign volunteers, and a suburban Republican breakfast club. That visit came about a week before he was indicted on federal charges stemming from classified records he kept at his Palm Beach, Florida home. The United States presidential campaign of Republican Ron DeSantis has pulled in an estimated $20 million in fundraising since the Florida governor launched his bid in late May. The disclosure comes as candidates in the 2024 race file their financial disclosures for the second quarter of the year with the Federal Election Commission. DeSantis' $20 million haul falls short of the estimated $35 million that his Republican rival, former President Donald Trump, reportedly raised in the same quarter. But it is nevertheless a sizable sum for the Florida governor, who had to contend with a glitch-filled campaign launch and high-profile controversies during the 6 weeks since he announced his candidacy. A review panel says former New York Mayor Rudolph Giuliani should be disbarred in Washington for how he handled litigation challenging the 2020 election on behalf of then-President Donald Trump. Giuliani claimed massive election fraud but had no evidence, wrote the 3-lawyer panel in a report released Friday that goes through the errors and unsupported claims in a Pennsylvania lawsuit he argued seeking to overturn the Republican president's loss to Democrat Joe Biden. Between Election Day and the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol, Giuliani and other Trump lawyers repeatedly pressed claims of election fraud that were almost uniformly rejected by federal and state courts. He is the third lawyer who could lose his ability to practice law over what he did for Trump. John Eastman faces disbarment in California, and Lynn Wood this week surrendered his license in Georgia. Mr. Giuliani's effort to undermine the integrity of the 2020 presidential election has helped destabilize our democracy, wrote the three lawyers on the panel: Robert C. Berniers, Caroline Haynes Oath-Murrell, and J.A. Brozost. The panel's report will now go to the D.C. Court of Appeals for a final decision. A judge in the United States has sentenced a man to 90 consecutive life terms in prison for a racist 2019 mass shooting that targeted Hispanic shoppers at a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, and left 23 people dead. U.S. District Judge David Guadarrama handed down the sentence on Friday to Patrick Crusius, who pleaded guilty in February in exchange for avoiding a federal death sentence. Crusius still faces Texas state charges that could result in the death penalty. You left children without their parents, you left spouses without their spouses, and we still need them. Bertha Benavides, whose husband was killed in the massacre, told Crusius during emotional impact statements by victims delivered in court earlier this week. Prosecutors said Crusius drove more than 1,126 kilometers overnight from suburban Dallas to the U.S.-Mexico border city of El Paso, carrying out the massacre on August 3, 2019, with a Romanian derivative of the AK-47 and hollow point ammunition. The attack was motivated by Crusius' belief that immigrants from Latin America were carrying out a Hispanic invasion of Texas in what he termed ethnic replacement, authorities said. The United States has decided to send cluster munitions to Ukraine, multiple news outlets have reported, despite concerns about the deployment of weapons banned by more than 100 countries. A weapons package including cluster munitions fired from a 155mm howitzer cannon was expected to be announced as soon as Friday, three U.S. officials told the Reuters news agency on condition of anonymity. The New York Times, citing people familiar with the discussions who requested anonymity, reported that several of U.S. President Joe Biden's key aides, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken, had recommended the U.S. send the weapons at a meeting of top national security officials last week, despite what they described as their own deep reservations. Cluster bombs release large numbers of smaller bomblets across a wide area, posing a major threat to civilians both during the war and long afterwards because some of the bomblets will fail to explode. More than 120 countries have signed the 2008 United Nations Convention on Cluster Munitions to ban their use, including some of Ukraine and the US's key allies such as France and the United Kingdom. No charges will be filed following a brief investigation of the altercation involving pop star Britney Spears, San Antonio Spurs rookie Victor Wembanyama, and a member of the player's security team, Las Vegas police said Friday. Spears said she was struck by a security guard as she tried to approach Wembanyama near a restaurant in a Las Vegas casino complex on Wednesday night. Wembanyama said a person, he later was told it was Spears, grabbed him from behind. But the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department said Friday that Spears inadvertently hit herself in the face when someone pushed her hand off Wembanyama. In its investigation, which is now over, police determined that the security guard did not willfully or unlawfully use force or violence against Spears. No arrests were made and no one was cited, the report said. In the report, police said surveillance footage of the event showed Britney going to tap the Spurs player on the shoulder. When she touched the player, pushes her hand off of the player without looking, which causes Britney's hand to hit herself in the face. Spears filed a police report alleging battery. The altercation happened Wednesday night. Spears said she recognized Wembanyama at another hotel earlier in the evening, and when seeing him again at the area resort and casino, she decided to approach him and congratulate him on his success, Spears said. His security then backhanded me in the face without looking back in front of a crowd, nearly knocking me down and causing my glasses off my face. Police interviewed security guards for the Spurs and Spears, both of whom said pushing a hand off someone's shoulder is a standard response, according to the report. The security guard for the Spurs said he spoke with Spears afterward, identified himself, and apologized. Spears' security team said she also apologized, the police report said. Twitter has threatened legal action against Meta over its new text-based app called Threads, which has drawn tens of millions of users since launching this week as a rival to Elon Musk's social media platform. In a letter Wednesday to Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, Alex Spiro, an attorney representing Twitter, accused Meta of unlawfully using Twitter's trade secrets and other intellectual property by hiring former Twitter employees to create a copycat app. The move ramps up the tensions between the social media giants after Threads debuted Wednesday, targeting those who are seeking out alternatives to Twitter amid unpopular changes Musk has made to the platform since buying it last year for $44 billion. Meta spokesperson Andy Stone wrote Thursday on Threads, "No one on the Threads engineering team is a former Twitter employee. That's just not a thing." In the letter, which news website Semaphore First reported Thursday, Spiro said Twitter intends to strictly enforce its intellectual property rights and noted the company's right to seek civil remedies or a court injunction. He said the letter marked a formal notice for Meta to preserve documents relevant for a potential dispute between the companies. In a reply to a tweet about the possibility of legal action against Meta, Musk wrote, "Competition is fine, cheating is not." President Joe Biden approved a disaster declaration request from Maine, freeing federal aid to help communities recover following a severe storm and flooding in the spring, officials said Friday. The state reported nearly $3 million in infrastructure damage across 9 counties caused by strong winds, heavy rain, and flooding between April 30 and May 1. "We are grateful that President Biden has approved Maine's request for a major disaster declaration," Democratic Governor Janet Mills and the state's congressional delegation said in a statement. "This declaration will make available critical federal funding that Maine will use to complete costly infrastructure repairs. State, tribal, and local governments and certain private non-profit organizations can tap into federal aid in Franklin, Kennebec, Knox, Lincoln, Oxford, Sagadahoc, Somerset, and Waldo counties. The disaster declaration also unlocks federal funding through a hazard mitigation program." U.S. officials granted full approval to a closely watched Alzheimer's drug on Thursday, clearing the way for Medicare and other insurance plans to begin covering the treatment for people with the brain-robbing disease. The Food and Drug Administration endorsed the IV drug Leqembi for patients with mild dementia and other symptoms caused by early Alzheimer's disease. It's the first medicine that's been convincingly shown to modestly slow the cognitive decline caused by Alzheimer's. Japanese drug maker Eisai received conditional approval from the FDA in January based on early results suggesting Leqembi worked by clearing a sticky brain plaque linked to the disease. The FDA confirmed those results by reviewing data from a larger 1,800 patient study in which the drug slowed memory and thinking decline by about 5 months in those who got the treatment compared to those who got a dummy drug. This confirmatory study verified that it is a safe and effective treatment for patients with Alzheimer's disease, said FDA's Neurology Drug Director Dr. Teresa Buracchio in a statement. The drug's prescribing information will carry the most serious type of warning, indicating that Leqembi can cause brain swelling and bleeding, side effects that can be dangerous in rare cases. The label notes that those problems are seen with other plaque-targeting Alzheimer's drugs. A woman who was previously warned to stay away from Taylor Swift's home in Rhode Island was arrested this week outside the beachfront property, police said. The woman was discovered in front of the home and arrested on Monday, said Westerly Police Chief Paul Gingerella. TMZ published photos showing someone in handcuffs outside the home's gates, which had multiple no trespassing signs. Overzealous fans have been a problem for Swift over the years, with several arrests at her homes. In July 2019, an Iowa man who said he wanted to meet Swift was arrested near her beachfront mansion carrying a crowbar and lockpicks, and a New Jersey man was caught inside the home months later. A Florida man who broke into Swift's home in New York City in 2018 was sentenced to jail after pleading guilty to criminal contempt and attempted burglary. It's unclear if Swift was home on Monday. She is in the middle of a 52-show stadium tour dubbed Eras. On Friday, she released Speak Now, Taylor's version, a re-recorded version of her third album. Now it's time for global updates. Tibetan spiritual leader the Dalai Lama has celebrated his 88th birthday with a wish for peace in the world and for the recognition of a common humanity among people. Hundreds of supporters and exiled Tibetans gathered at the Dalai Lama's hillside Indian headquarters in Dharamshala on Thursday, where artists played traditional musical instruments as the octogenarian Tibetan Buddhist leader presided over birthday celebrations in the courtyard of the Suglengkhang temple. "We are celebrating my 88th birthday, but look at me. I look barely 50, the Dalai Lama said. In a video message released on social media, the Dalai Lama said that many people around the world had heard of his name and may appreciate what I have to say. I pray to be able to bring peace to the world by spreading an understanding of the oneness of humanity," he said. "Although I am just one human being in the short term, I aspire to contribute to world peace in thought, word, and deed. While in the long term, I pray that everyone may reach Buddhahood," he said. The Dalai Lama has made the Indian town of Dharamshala his headquarters since fleeing from Tibet after a failed uprising against Chinese rule in 1959. Beijing has long accused the Tibetan spiritual leader of leading a political group engaged in anti-China separatist activities with the attempt to split Tibet from China. The Dalai Lama denies being a separatist and says he has only advocated for substantial autonomy for his people and the protection of Tibet's native Buddhist culture. India officially considers Tibet to be part of China, though it has also long hosted Tibetan exiles, including the Dalai Lama. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was among those who sent their birthday wishes and expressed admiration for the Dalai Lama's commitment to peace and non-violence. India's Federal Crime Agency said Friday it has arrested 3 railway officials in connection with one of the country's deadliest train accidents, which killed more than 290 people last month. The arrested men have been charged with culpable homicide without murder and destruction of evidence, the Central Bureau of Investigation said in a statement. It identified them as 2 signal engineers and 1 technician and said the investigation is ongoing. June's train crash in eastern Odisha state occurred when a packed passenger train was mistakenly diverted onto an adjacent loop line where it rammed into a stationary freight train loaded with iron ore. The collision derailed the passenger train's coaches onto another track where they struck a passing train that was running in the opposite direction. The 2 passenger trains were carrying more than 2,290 people when the collision took place. Nearly 1,000 people were injured. After the accident, India's Railway Minister Ashwini Vishnu said the cause of the crash was related to the signaling system. Now it's time for business news. Today's New York stock close price is 15,671.63. The NYSE Composite is increased by 29.96 points or 0.19%. Tokyo stock close price is 32,388.42. The Nikkei 225 index is decreased by 384.60 points or 1.17%. Shanghai stock close price is 3,196.61. The Shanghai index is decreased by 8.97 points or 0.28%. Hong Kong stock close price is 18,365.70. The Hang Seng index is decreased by 167.35 points or 0.90%. Bombay stock close price is 65,280.45. The Sensex index is decreased by 505.19 points or 0.77%. Let's have a look on today's sports stories. Bangladesh cricket superstar Tamim Iqbal has withdrawn his shock retirement from the sport after a meeting with Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. On Thursday, the veteran opener had broke down in tears while announcing the immediate end to his international career a day after leading his side to a 17-run defeat in the first of a three-match one-day series against Afghanistan. But on Friday, Bangladesh Cricket Board Director Jalal Yunis told the AFP news agency that Tamim had a change of heart after meeting with Hasina at her residence in the capital, Dhaka. Tamim Iqbal has withdrawn his retirement decision, Yunus said. However, he will take a 6-week rest to regain fitness. He has been under physical and mental pressure in the past 6 months, which affected his performance, Yunus added. Meanwhile, Tamim on his Instagram account posted a picture of him with Hasina with the caption, "Can't say no to the Honorable Prime Minister." Tamim's news conference on Thursday was followed by scathing criticism from BCB President Nazmul Hasan, who called the batsman's professionalism into question for playing the match despite admitting he was not 100% fit. The 34-year-old player's meeting with the Prime Minister took place hours after wicketkeeper batsman Liton Das was named captain for the remainder of the series against Afghanistan. Earlier in the day, Liton said Tamim's resignation had taken the team by surprise. The Atlanta Hawks have agreed to a 4-year, $120 million contract extension with guard DeJounte Murray, a person with knowledge of the deal told the Associated Press on Friday. The deal preserves the Hawks' backcourt combination with Trae Young and Murray and keeps Murray on the roster for 5 years, through the 2027-28 season. Murray hinted at the agreement on his Twitter account when he posted late Thursday, "Atlanta, been locked in from the moment you all accepted me," and added, "Loyalty over everything, let's go." The Hawks helped to clear cap space for the extension on June 26, when they traded forward John Collins to the Utah Jazz for veteran forward Rudy Gay and a future second-round draft pick. Collins is guaranteed $25.3 million in the 2023-24 season. Gay, 36 years old, is due approximately $6.5 million. Let's have a look on today's weather forecast. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest update. Millennium TV USA and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all at TVs such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV, and also in all European countries and Australia, available with Sky Network, Worldwide Jadoo TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jago BT Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.